Okay, everybody take a nice deep breath and let it all go. I am here only to be truly helpful. I am here to represent him who sent me. I do not have to worry about what to say or what to do because he who sent me will direct me. I am content to be wherever he wishes, knowing he goes there with me. I will be healed as I let him teach me to heal. Amen. Okay, we are going to go to workbook lesson 196 again. It's a good little lesson and we've been chopping away at it, so we're going to continue with that. This workbook lesson is I can be but myself, or it can be but myself I crucify. And basically what that means is if it's the results down here or coming from here, it is always me that's crucifying myself when I attack my brother. And that's something that I think it's going to take a long time for most of us to really settle in and understand what that is. But Jesus is always bringing us back and trying to give us that information in a slightly different way over and over and over. So we're going to start with paragraph 4. Today's idea is one step we take in leading us from bondage to the state of perfect freedom. Let us take a step today that we may quickly go the way salvation shows us, taking every step in its appointed sequence as the mind relinquishes its burdens one by one. It is not time we need for this. It is but willingness. What would seem to take 1,000 years can easily be done in just one instant by the grace of God. And last week we started with this paragraph and we talked about the idea of that first line where it says it's leading us from bondage to a state of perfect freedom. And one of the challenges that we all have is we don't even know that we're in bondage. I think we're awakening to the idea that something's not quite right in this world, but we never really got the idea that we are actually in bondage when we choose for the ego. And I mentioned the idea of the allegory of the cave, where people were in the cave and they were tied in and they could only see the shadows of the world that was outside, until one of the people got loose, came and was trying to encourage them to let go of their attachment to this world that they lived in. But I was thinking this week, it's almost as though all we are concerned about is, oh, that chain is a little tight on my hand. Could you fix that chain and then I'll be okay? We don't really, I don't know if I'm going to say want to, but we're not, we don't understand well enough that we really want to release ourselves from that bondage and move to freedom. Let us take this step today that we may quickly go the way salvation shows us, taking every step in its appointed sequence as the mind relinquishes its burden one by one. And I see that sentence as we release in a holy or in a willingness experience. Each time we are confronted with a burden, we are releasing ourselves from all the attachments that this world has. Then Jesus says something really interesting. He says, it's not time we need for this, but willingness. So what he's trying to say is that we may think this is going to take forever for us to accomplish, and I've heard many people throughout the years say, oh, I'm never going to get this course. And in this lifetime, maybe that'll happen, maybe it won't happen. but it's certainly easy to see why we would think that way. But what he's saying is really all you need is the little willingness, because in the only time that you can work towards healing of the course is in this moment. And in this moment, you have a choice to continue with the ego or choose for the Holy Spirit. And when we choose for the Holy Spirit, that is the little willingness. And he goes on to say, for what would seem to need 1,000 years can easily be done in just one instant by the grace of God. And personally, I love that line. I think that's great. Can you imagine one instant could save time of 1,000 years? And I sometimes show this chart where the idea of time is constantly ticking, one tick at a time. And when we have that holy instant, we are literally rising out of time. And when we're out of time, there's no time and space, and there's actually no me. And when we come back down, we've actually collapsed this amount of time so that we don't have to live those instances or those moments. So we're actually saving time as we work on this course. I'd actually like to go to a couple quotes or sections in the course that talk about this very specifically. And one of the places is in the teacher's manual, page 3. If anybody wants to read along, they can find that, where Jesus begins by saying, a teacher of God is anyone who chooses to be one. His qualifications consist solely in this. Somehow, somewhere, he has made a deliberate choice in which he did not see his interests apart from someone else. And I really like that idea, because a teacher of God can be anyone who wants to be one, but the prerequisite or the qualifications for that is that we come to a place where we ask to see our brother as the same instead of different as it was set up when we chose for the ego. Now that sounds pretty on paper, and we all know that when push comes to shove, sometimes we're not ready to let go of seeing my brother as the same. I want to be right, and that's it for the day. And Jesus would say, that's okay. If that's where you are, acknowledge it. And don't then think you're in this position because God put you there. You're in this position because that's where you've chosen to be. That's not good or bad. It's just simply in a realization, oh, if I have to relinquish my ability of being right to make my brother the same, I'm just not ready to do that. That is a totally different experience. But if we move down that paragraph right about the middle, it says, everyone will answer in the end, but the end can be a long, long way off. It is because of this that the plan of the teachers was established. Their function is to save time. Each one begins in a single light, but with the call at its center, it is a light that cannot be limited. And each one saves 1,000 years of time as the world judges it. To the call itself, time has no meaning. And I'm going to go through those lines real quickly. So everyone will answer in the end. Okay, I'm going to stop right there. And the course right at the very beginning begins by saying there's many paths. There's none that are wrong. They're all great. It's just, what are you drawn to? And if we're drawn to the course, Ken used to always say, you're drawn to the course, make sure you understand what it's saying so that you can live the course according to those rules and not interject a lot of all the other things that are available. And they're kind of tricky because there are many paths, And they kind of cross over at times, but the course really does have a little different message than most of them do. All right, so everyone will answer in the end, but the end can be a long, long way off. And I would say, even if we kind of look over our journey so far, for many of us, we've been practicing and studying different things even before we came to the course. So it does seem like it's a long, long way off. It is because of this that the plan of the teachers was established. So Jesus is basically saying, I've got some rules for you. I've got this to establish for you so that we can shorten that time a bit. And he even says their function is to save time. Each one begins as a single light, but with the call at its center, it is a light that cannot be limited. So we all start with that single light, or that moment where each one of us had that realization there must be another way. We may not have had those specific words come to awareness, but there was an awareness of something's not right here. This isn't working like everybody said it was going to work. And that was basically the light that came on to help us become aware that we want to find another way, or that call to the center.
So, Marianne, would you say then, I mean, what I've been experiencing lately has to do with time. It's very interesting that time, that there's not enough time, or that if I have like 3 things to do in the day, and I say, okay, I've been kind of guided. I'm going to do these things. I'm going to cook something. I'm going to go call a friend. I'm going to then go to work in the afternoon. And so often I feel that time is the enemy. That's come up in my thinking when I'm trying to get something done. And I notice myself, like kind of huffing and puffing around, oh, now let's see, I have an hour to do this, and then I have an hour to do that. And so it's been interesting to me to notice that time is something I'm very concerned about. And then I just have to stop. And it's like pain. It's like, hating my brother. It's like I'm all balled up in it. And so I'm finding that then becomes that I let that become the culprit, that I only have this much time, and then questioning that. And then finally, because I do enjoy cooking, and I do enjoy reading, I do enjoy the things I do, but I get worried, and then I see that I'm trying to make time the enemy. And that's when I can ask the Holy Spirit to help me. And I just, okay, sit down, breathe, whatever, and then get back into the place where I actually enjoy the way the food goes together, or whatever it is. But I found that very interesting, talking about time this time.
Yeah, and that's so correct, because time can be, this character could be time. Anything that, grabs us, I guess. It's a good.
Because I think I'm all cool going into it. Like, I've got my schedule, I've got my day calendar, and I have things to do, and I like that.
Yeah.
But sometimes I hate it. I see that's just how it goes. I see sometimes I really hate this, and yes, I don't want it to be that way. And then and I guess too, like, you start to think, well, look at God, I'm all set up here, and I'm so happy, and things are going so well. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, what time is it? And God says, who cares what time it is? Well, God doesn't say that, but I just get that inkling of, let's, help me. I have to say, help me in the middle of this wonderful day I'm having, that all of a sudden gets edgy like that. It's like it comes and goes like that.
Yeah, I like your word edgy, because boy, does that, hit the nail on the head. And I like the way that you said, I just sit down and breathe. And because that's kind of that bringing it back to the center where we can then connect with this, and time doesn't come and eat at you like it would do that way. And I know, people that are at work, they might say, well, I don't have that option. But just simply even closing your eyes, taking a deep breath and connecting and saying, okay, Holy Spirit, here I am. I want to be released from this clench of what time represents to me right now. And so literally, it doesn't matter what specific form it gets played out in. We have that option or opportunity to reconnect with the center no matter what happens on the outside. And time is a biggie.
Yeah, I mean, it's just how you slip right into being a victim.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I'm a victim of my own schedule that I love. Is crazy. And that's the other thing is when I think that, when I go, oh, I'm really tired or I'm whatever, and I say, well, help me. I'm like, why should I have to say that? I'm all plugged in now. I should be just happy as a clam doing all these things. And then all of a sudden it, I guess the reality or the complexity moves in, or a feeling like I'm going to fail, like the recipe isn't going to work. I mean, all those things just kind of rush right in to disrupt, like with people, how was your day? Oh, I had a good day. I did this, I did that, and that's what you want to hear. And that's what you want to do. But sometimes a good day is just breathing, I guess, and not doing as much. And I appreciate that as well. But I seem to feel better when it's always a balance.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's so fascinating, the subtleties of the way the ego can just sneak in there. And like you said, I'm going along, I'm having a good time, I'm working on my schedule, and then bam, it gets you by the throat. And it doesn't.
I mean, then because that's when you feel like you did something wrong.
Right.
Oh, now what did I do wrong? Oh, I shouldn't. I overbooked myself. You have all those answers. I took on too much. I said I was going to do this, and now I have to because I said so. And that isn't true. I see that is not true. That if I really don't want to, then but I think that was one of the things that drove me the most crazy all the time in my life, was how I had so much to do and felt like that it was working against me.
Yep. Okay. All right. So I'm going to read, let's see, starting with each one begins as a single light, but with the call at its center, it is the light that cannot be limited. So each time we have that call or that willingness to see it differently, and again, it doesn't matter how big or small the issue is, it can just be the frustration of lack of time. And it says that that call at its center is the light that cannot be limited. Then we shift into a different mode of experiencing things. And I know I've been, late going somewhere, and then I eventually calmed down and centered myself. And I ended up getting there perfectly on time. Or if I got there late, the meeting never started until a little bit late. So it really does kind of gel and kind of work together. All right. And this is the line I really like. It says, and each one saves 1,000 years of time as the world judges it. Wow, what more could we ask for? One instant out of time, and I could save 1,000 years of space in between? That's kind of a good deal in my book, guys. Because again,
1,000 years of aggravation.
What was that, Andre?
1,000 years of this aggravation, which sometimes that's what it feels like. You're stuck in a time warp of oh my God, am I ever going to get out of this? It feels like you're closed in from all sides, or like you're standing in quicksand or something. Am I ever going to get this done with?
Exactly. Cool. And that is right on. And that's what the ego loves to have us sit in. And it worked really good. We've done really well with this if we want to continue to be upset, anxious, irritated, and so on. Shelley, did you have something?
Oh, yeah. I was going to say it is just a way of being. Normally, anxious or whatever. And it's like when it is a calm thing, what I was going to say is just like so normal just to throw mud at yourself. And when you're not, then it's sort of like, wow,
Yep.
this is what it's like for peace. So it's just such a natural, like knee-jerk thing all the time to be critical and judgmental about everything. And then on that silent or second, so that it's like there's peace, that it's just a crazy thing. But you get so used to being in flux that it's a normal way to react and to be.
Yes.
So
I think that's, really a great deal of what the course talks about is we're so accustomed to life on planet Earth as the hero of the dream and the insanity of the world that we don't even think, oh, well, I'm anxious. We're just, it's who we are. Or, I'm upset or whatever. It's just like who we are. And we're becoming more and more in tuned and more aware. And as you keep asking for healing, then the anxiety comes down a little bit. And then when you find yourself there again, at least you're aware. Oh, wow, look, I've lost that space again. Can I come back down into that space?
Over Marianne?
Yep, Bob.
Marianne?
Yep.
That we have nothing but time. Because we don't die, we go on, so there's no such thing as time.
Correct. And the Course actually explains that time was made for us to come to the awareness that this isn't our home. That's basically the purpose of time.
Marianne?
Yes.
There's a lovely line from the Course that I'm probably going to misquote now. But it's something like, how foolish to think that time can come to circumvent eternity.
Yes.
And I find that helpful when I get anxious about things along the timeline.
Yes, that's a beautiful quote. Yes.
And I can remember, some years ago when I sort of realized what the Course was saying about both time and space. And what that meant to me was, I'm never lost and I'm never late because I'm always right here, right now. That's my starting point.
But again, we have to kind of settle to the point where we can take that in and be in that presence. Mm-hmm. It occurred to me years ago, if I was supposed to be somewhere else, wouldn't I be there?
I would be there, exactly.
That's quite a revelation, as simple as it is, yeah.
Well, you just tell that to the judge.
Well, exactly.
Judge?
Well, that's just one example of how it eats away at you where you have to be, and if you're in compliance or not in compliance, or if there's money to put in the parking meter, which thank goodness they finally say we have free parking. It took a pandemic to get free parking all over the city, but it worked.
Really? Lakewood, they didn't do that. You must be special.
Yeah. I mean, you just run out of there with your quarter like a bat out of hell and hope you didn't get a ticket. So that's, anyway, sorry to.
Yeah, no problem. So I want to point out this idea that world, time, and space live here. Outside here is no time and space and limitations. So this is just the rules and regulations of the world here. And when it talks about the holy instant, it actually is described as a moment out of time. I'm literally releasing my attachment to time and space. And when I'm there, I actually don't exist. Well, that's not real ego-friendly. So we usually have a moment at a time and then we slam dunk back into the world because we're not ready to embrace that intensity. But each time we do it, we're becoming more connected with that sense of who I really am. All right, so we're gonna hit another little space, and that would be text 389, paragraph number 6. And I'm really focusing on these because I think it's so valuable for us to understand. I'm not just having a little willingness and then poof, it's all gone. Literally, he's explaining to us those little willingnesses are bringing us to eternity. It's not just a little flishy flashy. And, you know, I always give the example when we choose for healing, and even though the next instant I can be back here, I'm not the same person that left. And I think that's so powerful. And at the same time, I, as Mary Ann, am not aware of that per se, but literally I am not the same person that left. So it's very important to really get this idea. All right. So we're going to start on line 4, paragraph 6. All right. So this is the special needs. Well, actually, I'll better read the whole thing because that's not going to make sense. Okay, here is the ultimate release, which everyone will one day find in his own way at his own time. You do not need this time. Time has been saved for you because you and your brother are together. This is the special means this course is using to save you time. You are not making use of the course if you insist on using means which have served others well, neglecting what was made for you. Save time for me by only this one preparation and practice doing nothing else. I need do nothing. It's a statement of allegiance, a truly undivided loyalty. Believe it for just one instant and you will accomplish more than is given to a century of contemplation or of struggle against temptation. All right, so I'm going to actually start at line 4 now, this idea that this is the special means this course is using to save you time. So the course knows time is only involved with the bottom left-hand side. I guess you could say we would still live in time on this side in the physical reflection in the world, but we won't be affected by the time as we are in the context of this. And why would we want to save time? And Andrea actually hit on this because as I begin to work on this, I'm saving time that I would normally have to go through instant after instant after instant of living within the context of the separated experience. So it's a real value to us to begin to work on collapsing that time. You are not making use of this course excuse me, if you insist on using means which have served others well, neglecting what was made for you, and that's in italics. So he's trying to help us understand that, again, there's nothing wrong with other practices out there. In fact, everybody's going to be drawn to whatever works for them. But as I mentioned before, if we really want to understand the course, we really have to focus in what the course is trying to tell us. And this is, I guess you could say, custom made for us because our choosing is to do this. All right, save time for me by only one preparation and practice doing nothing else. Okay, so this is the one thing he's asking. I need do nothing. And I want to talk about that little phrase a tiny bit, because I know people in the course will say, okay, well, I don't ever have to do anything because he says I need do nothing. That's not what he's talking about. He's saying in this instant, when you normally would be connected with the projection of guilt and fear, when you don't do anything, and I know Andrea's talked about this, we open up this space or this gap where we allow the chaotic aspect of the world, we kind of drop that and allow the space of the Holy Spirit or nothingness to fill that space so that we take our, I guess you could say, way of thinking about a situation and we drop that to allow the space or the gap of nothingness to fill it up, so that I don't have my stuff in the pocket, I guess you could say. And I like the image of the Zen master bringing the student in, and he's got a full cup of tea and he keeps pouring more water in the cup. Well, when you're tea in the cup, when he does it, it just falls over because there's no room to fill in what the answer is. And we're always walking into the world with, I got it, I know it, I. And what Jesus is saying is, no, you don't know what this is. You think you know what this is, and that's keeping you very busy. But when you can drop this and allow that empty space to be filled up, then an answer could be presented that doesn't have anything to do with our intellectual thinking, our intellectual doing, and the answer can come flowing in.
Over Marianne, that there is when you were in the now.
Absolutely.
That you don't think about the future and you don't think about the past.
Correct.
You're in the now.
Absolutely. And
when you're in the now, you're on the right side of the chart.
Correct. And it's in the now that's the only time you can ever heal, because it's the moment outside of time, literally. And when we're over here trying to figure it out ourselves, we haven't let go of that. And if we live in the past or the future, in fear of the future and, regret of the past, there's no space for that empty space to get filled. Very important.
Question?
Yes.
Yeah, we started off talking about what was necessary was willingness.
Yes.
And then as you were talking about other paths that might, run parallel to the course for a while,
Yep.
I was reminded of Kabir, Sufi, who said, let the longing do the work. Would you say that longing and willingness are the same in that regard? It sounds like...
I'm not sure where he was coming from, and because when you're dropping this, it's not, I don't even know I would attach the word longing to that. Because
it sounds almost like that's a wanting.
Exactly, that's what's coming to me for sure.
And willingness is like, I give up.
Yeah, to me, and again, I don't know exactly where he was coming from with that, but I would say, just like you're saying, it feels like I'm still trying to figure, as opposed, and he even said in that one section, we don't need time, or excuse me, where is it? It is not time we need for this, it is but willingness.
Yeah.
And the idea of the willingness is dropping it. Like you said, I don't know, I'm done, I've tried it all, I'm finished, you show me. And that's a very different place than I'm going to figure this out, and gosh, what else do I have to do? Yeah.
And it's different than wanting it.
It's different than wanting it.
Yes. There is no wanting in willingness.
Yeah. And
what Kabir, another part of what Kabir says is longing for the guest. He talks about Jesus or the God as the guest. And that's where his longing is, for the guest. Like if we really want the Holy Spirit, it comes from that longing for God. And if that's what we lead with or hope to find out, then that's more than willing, I guess, is what I'm thinking. Or that's what's appropriate. Is it you have to want that more than you want anything else? And we've talked about that with the water and the
right,
the bucket of water and stuff. So that's what the that teaching is so it forces me to look at what I really want, and then see that if I don't, that unless I really want God, unless I really want like nothingness, so it looks like nothingness, I won't get it.
Yeah, and again, words can mean so many different things, but to me, it's almost like it's well, I need do nothing. It's the relinquish of me, and the course even talks about, we don't know what the problem is. How can we figure out the answer if we don't even know what the problem is? But it's I guess you could say, the relinquishment of all attachments to anything I think I have to do with coming to an answer.
Yeah.
This can be, go ahead, Rose.
Oh, I was gonna just say, for me, from experience that I've had, and it's just what Helene said, it's saying no to the denial of truth.
Right.
For me, that's where willingness seems to come in, is when I don't want what the ego is offering me.
Yes. And I would say in some respects that the longing takes us to that moment when we can be willing to drop it. So I'm not knocking longing per se.
Right.
But I think there comes that moment where it's like, I'm done.
Yeah, and I'm not knocking it either, but there's ego longing, and there's a discernment there.
Right.
That needs to take place, because it can't, it can't be just complete ego. Yes.
Exactly.
And it may also, what I was going to say was, it might be a matter of translation.
Yes.
Because when I think of the word longing and the word willingness, the willingness is just like letting it all go. We're not real good at that. We don't have a lot of words, that stand in for that. So maybe in the translation, longing was as close as they could come.
Right. Yeah. And okay. So.
Another word that Kabir uses is the bride, the bridegroom, as an example of what, so that when you're all hooked up ready to get married, that essence of the bridegroom, and the one that you join with in total peace and immersion, was because at first I didn't understand it, and the word guest also is quite different, in terms of, he didn't use Jesus because he wasn't, I don't know what, he was a Sufi or whatever. He didn't even know Jesus probably. So that was his interpretation of how, how much do you want this? And that's really what's pivotal to what you get. You have to want to not be caught up in all the stuff. And until you're caught up, you don't know that you might want something else.
True, absolutely. And I think in my journey, as I began, and there was clenching, and I want to get this, and why can't I, just this, and after some time, it's like, oh, you get to a point where it's like, okay, it'll happen when it happens, and we'll see how it goes. And eventually you can then just kind of start more from that empty slate. But you can't get there until you're ready to get there. And it's part of the process.
And it's so paradoxical.
Yeah.
You get what you want by not wanting it.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, wrap your head around that.
No. And it's almost like, especially as you're getting to that point, you can't know that place.
Right.
But then whenever you have those moments of the holy instant where something has shifted within me, then you can go, oh, that's what they've been talking about. That's where I want to be. Yeah, definitely. Or, the concept of Buddha, who ran all around the world and did all kinds of things, and then just sat down exhausted in front of the tree. Well, he let go. He did nothing. And then poof, the answer comes forth. And I really think, again, all the steps are necessary, but the eventual truly letting go and allowing that space to be empty is the answer.
That's I've been thinking a lot about what we talked about last week, as far as the speed of being able to, how getting faster at being able to get back into the technology, into the process of this. And then someone had said, well, and I said the Holy Spirit, there's a discernment. There's like what we choose as far as applying the technology and being able to be better and better at going into that sort of nothingness, being able to release the ego and all of that. And then there's the involvement of the Holy Spirit. And I think someone understood me to say that
Right.
the Holy Spirit determines our timing. That's not what I meant. And this, I've been thinking about it all week because I thought I didn't say it very well. But this is a better way to say it, which is that, we go as we can. Like, and it's a dance with the Holy Spirit. Like, I was responding last week to what I heard was an idea of, well, if we just figure out how to do this the right way, then we will work this program and it will work and we will be set, and any challenges we're having are a function of us not being able to work this properly. and for me, it's more like willingness. And for me, I like the word allowing something to come in, which is sort of somewhere in the same neighborhood of longing and willingness and all of that. But it's just, that's really kind of a better way. Gosh, language is so hard around some of these concepts.
Absolutely.
So, but just that sort of dance of like, I keep coming as best I can, and Holy Spirit invites me as I'm ready. That I was really hearing last week, and what I was reacting to really was the idea that, well, if you just get the steps right, and if you just work the process, and to me that felt like a very ego-based answer, like just do everything right and you'll be fine. But anyway, this is I've been thinking about that all week because I felt like I just didn't say things very well.
Oh,
As you-
it's especially fun in the middle of all the crap that happens. That's when you actually start to, meet the rubber at the road there, and it's not, you got a punctured tire. You're all set to see how, okay, Holy Spirit, now what are we doing? What's the game plan? And it's just do nothing until it occurs to you what to do. And sometimes it's faster than other times. And sometimes you have to sit and wait in the road for 2 hours. And you still have that option to do nothing and be lifted up out of that.
What I'm finding is that it's kind of like the ego presents me with something, and I look at that, I really look at it, and if I look at it and I say I don't want that, then that just removes one block.
Right.
So I'm not what I was thinking before was I try to get to the Holy Spirit, but you can't get to the Holy Spirit. You just have to let go of what you don't want, or what you figure out you don't want.
Yes. And that's anti everything I am. And that's where the challenge comes in. We are doers. The first thing that the first choice when we chose for the ego was, I want to be in control. I want to be God. Literally, that was what that choice represented. And we've been following through since the Big Bang of that way of living and breathing in the world. So this says, oh, just drop all of the gunk in your life and I'll show you truth. Totally anti my existence on planet Earth. So right now, the very fact that any one of us can have a moment where we do that is monumental beyond our imagination. But we want, we think we want this so bad that we think, oh, I'm not doing this right because I'm back over here. And it slowly accumulates, and then we're more and more willing to just do nothing and wait for the answer.
So Marianne, I had an experience where I had this vivid image of me lying naked in a desert, curled up into a fetal position, just in total pain.
Okay.
And separated from everybody I love and all this stuff. And I looked at that and I was like, is that really what my ego wants for me? Oh my God, that's insane.
Not very nice.
That's insane that's actually what I'm trying to get to, that place of total loneliness and like oblivion.
Well, and literally having chosen against love, that is what we chose. And then we try to blame it on somebody else, or we try to make it a problem that doesn't have anything to do with me. But it's exactly what we chose via the choice for separation. We chose to be in isolation, devastation, lack, and limitation. But we didn't even know that's what we did to ourselves. And we're learning I'm going to use the word value. It doesn't quite sound right, but the value of what we chose.
Right, but that's kind of what I'm saying, is that I'm not even aware that that thought, that image is really there, but subconsciously I'm driving myself towards it. In other words, I'm driving myself towards ruin.
Well, that's the only thing the ego can do.
But at the same time, I'm building a family, have a house, have a car, have a job,
Yeah.
have family, have friends,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
totally contrary to that image. But it's like psychologically behind the scenes, I'm moving towards that image.
And that's very important. I like your word uses, because we look at this as all this stuff that we're doing and we're accomplishing, and isn't that wonderful? But behind the scenes, I'm just digging deeper and deeper into the attachment of the ego, not being aware of what that really represents. And I think, this whole COVID thing has been very helpful in the respect that we don't have as many diversions. We don't have many places to hide behind anymore. So it's like we're being forced to look a little deeper, find out what was really there all the time.
I like what Jason was saying. He said, look, and I heard Ken say, add on to willingness. We have to be willing to look, because only when we look, you just can't go sit down and wait for Holy Spirit,
No.
But
Look is
my
really important.
my experience, the willingness to look and see what's going on. And I'm doing what?
Yeah.
When I see what I'm doing, then something can, something opens up to.
I mean, it literally is, if we don't know that something's broken, there's no way we're ever going to come to fix it. And as Tashara was saying, not only does Ken say that, but the Course has numerous places where it says we have to look. We set this up to make it look like somebody else was responsible, and it's not the case. We set it up, and we're the ones that are responsible, not as Jason or Tashara, but as the choice. The characters are just playing out the story that the choice made. So as we begin to look at what the choice is and what the choice brings us, and recognize, I'm curled up in the sand, dying in the fetal position with no food or clothes. That's really what we've chosen, as opposed to truth.
And Marianne, I don't know that the Course talks about courage, but it seems to me that it takes courage to look at, like what Jason was talking about, see himself that way. And every time we face, looking at the source, at what we've really put out there, I think that takes courage.
Yeah, well, I absolutely agree with you. And I don't know that I ever heard those words specifically, but oh my gosh, especially initially, because there's actually a line that says, we made a pact with the ego that we would never, ever, 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 ever look. Now we're using that for a different purpose, and he's inviting us to look, not because ultimately it's even real, but because we think it's real. And as we can become aware of what we did to ourselves, and our willingness to drop it will start to improve. Yeah.
But Marianne, what this image did for me is it eroded my trust in the ego, because I'm trusting the ego to do what, to do what's good for me. And I'm seeing that what it wants for me is not what I really want.
Absolutely, in no way.
I work with high school students teaching music. One of the things that comes up for them a lot is anxiety, like playing in front of people, etc. And of course, these days with everything, there's just anxiety is a fact of teenage life, and it's 10 times worse in the pandemic, right? And we talked about the first step of overcoming anxiety is understanding that it is different from you. right? And it's the same, it makes me think of the same conversation, like what Jason is saying is there's this thing that's driving us in a direction that's not helpful. And then, but that's not us. Like having that distinction of like, there's me, for me, there's me, and then there's anxiety, or there's me and then there's the ego, or there's me and then there's something else which isn't truly me. And for me, that first step of like being on any of these journeys is that discernment between the entity that I am and the mechanics of whatever process is working, whether it's anxiety or ego or whatever. And that first, that cleaving, which I talked about it last week too, like me understanding like how much I wanted to be right, and then understanding that that was not necessarily me, and that then I could see the cost of it. I think that first step is just so, it's everything. It's like, it opens up the world, being able to understand that there is an ego and it is driving us in ways that are separate from where our spirituality wants to take us.
And the Course really specifically states that in the fact that this character that I call me is just a puppet that's playing out the choice for this. So yes, we have to lift that barrier and look beyond that, because if I'm just looking at this character, you know, I think that I'm at fault, or somebody was talking about making a mistake. Well, I think I made the mistake. The mistake has nothing to do with me. It has to do with the choice. And the
But
Course,
not only I made the mistake, but I can fix it, which for me is, in my life, has been my most dangerous place to be, thinking I can by myself.
not say that you think you can fix it, but you think you're supposed to fix it. I mean, again, that's the programming of our world.
So Marianne, is this a helpful image or helpful understanding that basically the decision maker is watching the Jason show? Okay, the decision maker gets so involved in the Jason show that he becomes Jason, and then he steps out of being Jason when he looks, or when I look.
Correct.
It's something like that, right?
Yes, correct. And when you're here, you're not there, and when you're there, you're not here.
Right.
Very different. And you want to spend as much time here and the least amount of time here, because this is where the healing occurs.
Right. So when I look, I give control back, or it's kind of like, the way I kind of started to see it is it's kind of like breaking the third wall, you know, or maybe it's the fourth wall. I think it's the fourth wall in television, you know, where all of a sudden the character leaves the scene and starts talking to you directly.
Okay.
You know, it's kind of like talking to it's like you're talking to the decision maker at that moment, you know, ego or Holy Spirit.
Right. Yes, and that's perfect. And understand, again, the value of that, I'm going to move this for a sec, is that when you're here observing Jason, you're not the Jason, okay? You're the observer of the Jason.
Right.
Okay? And when you're here, you're no longer creating more time. You know, again, if we take this chart, you're no longer creating the need to fill each one of these moments. So it's a very valuable place to be. Very valuable.
I think of it like that laid out in front of me is like I'm supposed to, the ego wants to get even with God. The ego is trying to run a marathon, or trying to be in total competition. And so that's just like, I guess, where I'm coming from this week, is feeling that sense of competition, and being able to draw back means that I've already won the race, even though the ego's running maybe, you know, 50 feet ahead of me. It doesn't matter. That's an image that has come to me lately. Thank you.
The Course does actually address that literally we are in competition of God. When we chose this, we chose the opposite, and there's nowhere where these two thought systems meet. I'm either choosing for this or choosing for that. And I think initially, as we understand the Course, that, you know, doesn't make any sense at all. But eventually, we really need to recognize, like we're walking on railroad tracks, only these railroad tracks, instead of going forward, are going like this. And eventually, you have to make a choice. Where do I want to align myself? And, you know, the back and forth is literally making the curve of the separation continue to spread apart. And eventually we will make that choice because we can't tolerate it any longer. But it's, yeah, for sure, right there. All right, anybody else before we go on?
I just wanted to say that it reminds me of an Eckhart saying, and the seeing is the freeing. You talk about going back to the decision maker.
Correct.
That's where freedom lies, yeah. And the only freedom we have.
And the only freedom we have. And I just want to make sure, Andrea said something about the competition of the ego, and be very aware. The only reason we have a competition with the ego is because we chose to have a competition with the ego. So the seeming ego part of us that keeps seemingly pulling us back is only doing that because we've given it the power to do so via the choice and the reinforcement of it. It in itself is a nothing. So, you know, the Course will talk many places that it appears there's two choices, but there's really only one choice. But because we believe this choice is real, we will think that this has validity until we don't believe that any longer.
So we're the ones who have the capability and the choice of pulling the rug out from under the ego.
Correct. And we're the only one that has that opportunity.
Yes, and I just love that image. All of a sudden, I'm thinking of cartoons. Thank you.
Yeah, right. We know how much you love those.
Yeah.
Okay, so I need do nothing. And again, that doesn't mean I never do anything in the rest of my life. It means in this instant, I relinquish what I thought was reality just for a moment to let him show you what is the replacement for what I've been holding so dearly. And I know Cynthia was talking last week about, I don't want to let go of I want to be right, because that's such a powerful experience. And of course it would be, because the whole thought system is set on I'm in control. All right, so I need do nothing is a statement of allegiance, a truly undivided loyalty. Because I don't know, and we know from workbook lesson 5, I don't know what the problem is. I don't know what the solution is. Very powerful and vital, a place to be. Because if I don't know, I'm not filling that empty space with what I think I do know. I say, I don't know. Then the answer can be filled in. Believe it for just one instant, and you will accomplish more than is given to a century of contemplation or of struggle against temptation. Wow. Wow. And again, he's trying to help us understand the value of the Course and not judgment of anything else. I mean, Ken actually got to meet Mother Teresa, and he said, in form, oh my gosh, those thought systems were total opposite ends of the range, but she was coming from a place of desiring to connect with that love, and because of that choice was having the same results that the Course could provide.
Yes.
But this is a different approach. And you know, I love the concept of struggle against temptation. How often have we struggled against, I know I'm supposed to be good and I wasn't good, and then we hate ourselves, or we, you know, try to be nice and then the person's not nice back, and then we attack them, and then we feel bad, and it just keeps this tornado of the ego whipping around, like keeping us stuck in that experience.
Yeah, that was this morning. Watching elderly people just about duke it out. It's very interesting. Yeah.
Wow.
temptation. That was just what you, that whole sentence was exactly summed it up for me today. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so we're going to turn to workbook 97 this time, paragraph 3.
Thank you.
And this is a real short paragraph we're going to read, and then we're going to go back to another section. And then we'll move on to our other place we work. All right, so this workbook lesson says, I am spirit. Today, we try to bring reality still closer to your mind. Each time you practice, awareness is brought a little nearer at least. Sometimes 1,000 years or more are saved. The minutes which you give are multiplied over and over, for the miracle makes use of time, but is not truly, or excuse me, but is not ruled by it. Salvation is a miracle, the first and last, and the first that is the last, for it is one. Okay, so it's saying, today we try to bring reality still closer to your mind. How do we bring reality closer to your mind? By letting go of what's in your mind. It's the only way it's going to be accomplished. If I'm trying to figure it out, you know you're back in the ego. And it's important that we don't feel guilty every time we're back in there in the, trying to figure it out, because that's our natural flow, and we will continue to do that probably for a long, long time. But when you catch yourself there, recognize it and stop and say, wait, I don't want to be in control. I know you have the answer and I don't have the answer. But don't browbeat yourself. So it says, each time you practice, awareness is brought a little nearer at least. Isn't that great? Every time you practice the little willingness and ask for help, you are literally bringing truth nearer and nearer to your awareness, because you're dumping the awareness of the ego, and you're putting your money in the right bank account this time. Sometimes 1,000 years or more are saved. Now, I, as Marianne, have no inclination of awareness of what in the heck he's talking about. But, that's the third time, or maybe the fourth time today, as I'm reading through some of these sections, he's telling us when we do this, a lot more is being accomplished than we have the conscious awareness that's happening. Because usually what we're doing is something is uncomfortable here, and even if you do drop it, you come over here for a second and then come back here, and then you look around in the world and go, well, nothing's changed. In fact, sometimes it gets pretty ugly, or uglier than it was before. And it's me that is trying to evaluate, me, the ego attachment, is trying to evaluate my results. But he's saying, no, you've saved 1,000 years by just that one instant. That's pretty cool in my book. All right, the minutes which you give are multiplied over and over. And again, 1 minute seems like, for me, can be multiplied over and over in that instant. For the miracle makes use of time, but it is not ruled by it. And basically what that means is, because we believe we're in time, we will use time as our place of beginning, I guess you could say, but it's not really ruled by it. It's just where we happen to be. And if you think about Jesus coming down and playing blocks on the ground with us because we're little kids, it's just a similar thing to that. So salvation is a miracle. And salvation is seeing your brother as the same as you instead of different. And I assure you, your eyes, your emotions, your feelings, your just about everything about you will continue to see your brother very differently. It's the setup of the ego. So when we're willing to drop that for that instant, we'll then be able to be shown that our brother is the same, even though my eyes, which are obviously lying to me, have convinced me that my brother is my salvation and not what truth is. So the first and the last, and the first that is the last, for it is one. So again, dropping this will take us to a place of oneness.
But
Any comments about that
seems,
paragraph?
Marianne,
Yes, Jay.
it seems that we need to first weaken our faith in the ego,
Yeah,
because if you have a strong faith in your ego, you're not going to go for the Holy Spirit. It doesn't appeal to you. You don't see how your faith in the ego is actually damaging you.
yes.
Or at least damaging what you want to see. That's why that image was so powerful for me, was because I was just like, so this is what my ego wants? This is not what I want.
Yeah.
I may not be able to trust God. I may be afraid of God, but I know I don't want what I'm seeing.
Yeah. And I think the beauty of our vigilance of observing is we will start to have moments like that where, wow, now I know what he's talking about. But until we have the reflection of those moments occur, we can be doing those holy instances for a long time. And, we're kind of like going through them, but we don't really, it doesn't capture us. But when you have a moment like that, it's like, okay, we're in another ballpark here. And yes, literally 90% of the course is understanding what the ego's up to and how it really filters down into, it's not very good for me. And yet we're probably 98% attached to it. So it's like, like peeling off your own skin. Not a fun process sometimes. But as we keep doing it and keep asking for the holy instances in that one moment, then the reflection of, oh, wow, now I get it. It's making sense. The thoughts are coming together. It's really cool. All right, we are now going to go back to text 389, paragraph 5. And again, a great deal of the process of the course is taking us to a place where we don't see our brothers separate. If there's a me and a you, and I'm right and you're wrong, we're separate. That's how we've spent like literally almost all of our breathing days. And again, it talks about a brother sometimes, but literally, as we talked before, this could be time, this could be the blueberry, it could be the typewriter, it could be your car, it could be anything that appears, and your own body for that matter, that appears to be, if it wasn't for this, I could be okay. And the way this is set up is I could get rid of this, but it's going to come back in some form because this has not been healed. This has not been taken care of. All that's taken care of is I've, scratched off what's on the screen, but what's on the screen is coming from the film in the camera. And until that's fixed, something or someone is going to come along and disrupt our peace yet again. Okay, so paragraph 5 on text 389. Your way will be different, not in purpose, but in means. A holy relationship is a means of saving time. One instant spent together with your brother restores the universe to both of you. And I'm just going to stop there. All right, so again, many spiritual journeys out there. Nothing wrong with them. They're just not necessarily completely the same as the course. So it says your way will be different, not in purpose. In other words, the purpose is we want to get healed or remember who we were, but in means. In other words, the way that we accomplish it will be different. And the course says a holy relationship is a means of saving time. And what is a holy relationship? It's a moment literally out of time where I see my brother as the same instead of different. I can't access that as long as I continue to hold the image of my brother and I are different, or kill or be killed, or there's a problem, or there's something's wrong. And so literally what it really means is dropping your image or content or whatever you want to call it of there's something wrong and it's not me, it's something or someone else. And when you can do that, that brings you to the holy instant where now my brother and I, whatever that situation is coming from oneness versus from an experience of duality. Okay. So, one instant spent together with your brother restores the universe to both of you. Because again, when I see my brother different, I drop that image, then I can be led to seeing my brother as the same. And therefore, I offer healing for myself and for my brother. And the Course talks about Jesus dying on the cross. And he specifically says, because he was aligned with truth, he could see the people who were doing all these things to him totally through the eyes of love. Because he knew that they weren't any different than he was. He knew they were simply calling for love. But in order to align with that, you have to be here. You can't be over here saying, oh, I really like my brother. You know, I know he's an idiot, but I'm going to do the course. No, it doesn't work that way. I have to drop my image of my brother completely, and of myself for that matter, to find out what the replacement is. Because my answer of this is never going to come as long as I'm attached to this.
So Jesus was the only reason he was able to do that was because he was aligned with truth.
Exactly. And at that point for him, he was aligned unequivocally, where nothing over here could ever disrupt or take away his peace. And we're still in training.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I think it's a pretty worthy goal personally. Yep. Okay.
Well, nothing else promises to disrupt the ego. So nothing else gives they or to like it's a guarantee that if we can get to truth, then we're all set too.
Exactly. And as those places we read today explain, you think that's just one instant that you spent over here, but literally it will heal instances that you won't have to live. And that's pretty impressive. And I mentioned before, you're either here or you're here. When you're here, the carpet of time continues to roll out. The more time we spend here, the carpet of time doesn't stretch out any further. So we're eliminating the need to continue to play in time.
And we accidentally discovered peace on the way.
There you go.
At least that's the way it feels accidental. Like, well, what is this now? Oh, well, then everything else is gone. The crap is gone for one instant. And you're like, oh, well, I guess that's possible then.
Yes, exactly. And Andrea didn't do it. Andrea set up the situation for it to be allowed to work through her. Hugely different than me trying to figure it out. Okay. All right, so we're going to go back to workbook 196, paragraph 5. And actually, I'm going to read the last 2 lines on paragraph 4 because they're delicious. All right, it is but willingness that we need. I'm adding what we need. For what would seem to need 1,000 years can easily be done in just one instant by the grace of God. All right, paragraph 5. The dreary, helpless thought that you can make attacks on others and escape yourself has nailed you to the cross. Perhaps it seems to be salvation, yet it merely stood for the belief the fear of God is real. And what is that but hell? Who could believe his father is his deadly enemy, separate from him and waiting to destroy his life and blot him from the universe without the fear of hell upon his heart? All right. Short paragraph packed with a lot of previous information that the course has talked about. So we'll try to address some of that. So the dreary, helpless thought that you can make attacks on others and escape yourself has nailed you to the cross. Well, the way we set this up was I'm going to play the part of an innocent victim to hide my belief that I have separated from love, and I'm going to make everything and everyone outside of me the problem, okay? And every time they attack me, I'm going to be justified to attack them back because I'm an innocent victim. They're the ones that caused the problem, and so it is. But what we've literally done is nailed ourselves to the cross. And how did we nail ourselves to the cross? Because we put one more moment of belief in separation instead of love. Every moment that we play this game, we're saying, bring me more. This is what I want. So we're literally continuing to hold ourselves on the cross. And when we start to choose this, we're taking the nails out. And we're letting the crown of thorns be released. All right, so he says, perhaps it seemed to be salvation. Well, wow, and again, Jason mentioned this earlier, we're totally identified with the ego. And in our ego world, it appears if somebody does something to me, I better set them straight so I'm okay. That's duality to it, the hilt. It's the way it was set up. But what this is saying is we seem to believe that was our salvation, but that is not our salvation. Our salvation will never be blocked from identifying with this part of our belief system. Now, having said that, I want to make it very clear that because we do believe this is real, we're going to now use whatever is taking our peace away for a different purpose. And that purpose is, I've lost my peace. That has to mean I chose for this. And when I'm ready, I can choose again. And the course actually states that then your brother or whatever situation that shows up is our salvation, because it's reminding us of what was in our mind that we projected out so that we would forget that was in our mind. So we then use this seeming problem as the solution to the problem. And again, we need to drop the belief or the investment in the problem being here to be able to find out what the answer of truth is that will reflect and show forth over here. All right, so this idea of attack, and yet it nearly stood for the belief the fear of God is real. So we understand the dynamics initially. When we were here, we had that tiny mad idea where we thought, gosh, I wonder what it would be like if I could be God. We then, alrighty, we got this over here. We were on the throne, or God was on the throne, and when the Son of God decided to separate, he said, God, get off the throne. I'm going on the throne. There's only one throne. It's either God's on there or it's me that's on there, or the Son of God at that point in time. So now we have the experience of a me and a God. And as we know, we've made that God within the concept of the belief system of the ego, a God that can be nice, and then he can be not so nice. He can, cause wrath. He can cause tornadoes. He can cause the flood. He can, cause my death. And so now I fear this concept of a God. And the Course calls that God the God of sickness, not the God of love that is awaiting us to return home. So the results of all this thought system are sin, guilt, fear, death, projection, and I am different from literally every single thing in this planet. And the results are, I believe, in separation. And as Jason mentioned, then we totally identify with our ego and we play the part of the hero of the dream or the main character in my dream. And I'm affected and, have relationship to all the things within the world. They keep me extremely busy. They keep me extremely brain dead of what's really going on. And, we all know whatever forms of chasing after the world to accomplish or fix or get more, or whatever the words you want to describe, have kept us very, very busy within the context of the world. And when we are so involved in those, we won't come to the realization of do nothing. I got plenty of things to keep me busy here, and I got to figure out how to take control and take care of things. And so what he's saying is, yet it merely stood for the belief the fear of God is real. Because once we chose for this, we didn't trust God anymore. We didn't see God as love anymore. We made up our own form of a God, which was literally a projection of my belief system on an image that we call God. And just like my brothers, that image is sometimes you're nice, sometimes you're not. But when you're not, I'm going to go after you because I have to defend my position as being an innocent victim and blame you for my lack of peace. When in truth, this thing, whether it's a person, a place, a thing, or a situation, could not ring my doorbell over here, could not ring my doorbell because I don't have a doorbell to be rung. The doorbell is only available when I've identified with the ego thought system. So it's not what they did that rang my doorbell. What they did was ring my doorbell because I have this doorbell within. Over here, I have I guess you could say, the doorbell of the Holy Spirit. And he goes on to say, and what is that but hell? Jason, again, was talking about, becoming a little bit more aware of the choice and the results of choosing for the ego represent. If I don't, if I'm not stunned into understanding that this was not a good choice, I am going to continue to choose this over and over and over. And often when I would go to the foundation, people will have read some other books about the Course, and a lot of the other books are nice parts of the Course to talk about love and joy and peace, and there are many in the Course, and they're absolutely beautiful and delicious. But then they heard what Ken was saying, and Ken is saying, we got to look at our stuff, guys, in order to heal it. And people would be in tears because they weren't ready to acknowledge that depth of understanding in the Course. And he would say, then go home and, live your life as you need to live your life. But when you get to a point when you know the world as it was set up is just not working, something is wrong here. Then we're going to dig a bit deeper, and then as it starts to shift, we'll dig even deeper because we know, as Jason came to that momentary image, this is not bringing us what we thought it was going to bring us. And then our willingness and our trust that I'm going to give this a shot starts to come to the surface. I don't want to continue to make my brother wrong so that I can be okay any longer. It doesn't feed me any longer.
Mary
So we
Ann,
stop thinking of anxiety as a normal thing in our world. That it's anxiety. Oh, it's just normal because everybody goes through that. That's a direct um, idea that that other people will say, well, of course you're anxious because this and that, and if you only go do this, or only do this other thing, then you'll feel better. Or if you only go to the psychiatrist and you stop working so much. I mean, they have all these things to do, and to have met people who have done all those things and still are anxious is really interesting.
Yes, yes, yes. And again, we're trying to fix it on the outside. Okay, I'll take the medication, I'll do this and I'll do that. And again, of course, would never say, don't see a therapist or don't take your medication. Do whatever you have to do in the world, but understand that that's just a Band-Aid and it is not going to heal your mind, because the mind is where the problem is. And, again, we live in this world where we accept duality and pain and frustration and anxiety as the norm. That in itself is pretty darn sick, and yet it's all we know. We were born in a puddle of terribly dirty water, but it's all we've known. And the Holy Spirit is saying, but there's this pristine pond over here. Come on, give it a try. And it's like, but I don't know, there's a problem. And as we begin to choose more, oftentimes some of the water starts splashing up in my face, and I don't like it when it splashes in front of my face. But that's really good, because it's saying, this really isn't the way, guys. Keep turning over. Keep giving it up. And then you'll find the answer that is the answer.
And and looking and seeing that what's happening, I'm doing this to myself.
Absolutely.
Whatever I'm blaming on you is what I'm doing on myself, to myself, and that is.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, the name of this workbook lesson, it can be but myself I crucify. That's a little hard to take, but it's really what he wants us to understand, not to make us feel even more guilty than we are, but to help us understand this is a choice we've made that isn't serving us, if we really want to come to a place of healing and love. Okay. All right, so who could believe his father is his deadly enemy, separate from him and waiting to destroy his life and blot him from the universe without the fear of hell upon his heart? And what this really relates to is that the Course would say that when we separated from God, we literally made God our enemy. We couldn't trust him anymore. We didn't believe that he was saying nothing happened. We didn't believe that choosing for love or for God would be a good choice. We literally began to project our guilt, sin, and fear on the image of God, and we didn't trust him any longer. So when it says, who can believe his father is a deadly enemy? Well, the Course is trying to help us understand the God of love would never be a deadly enemy. It doesn't exist in his thinking. Only thing that lives here is the thought of total, unconditional love. Anything else, any other form that we attribute to God is not the God of truth. It is the made-up God or the God of sickness that we have identified with. And then it says, who would believe his father is his deadly enemy, separate from him? Well, from this perspective of duality, I separated from the love of God and literally killed off this image of a true God so that I could live in this thought system. Not very good. And waiting to destroy his life and blot him from the universe. Well, just think of the concept that most people live under, that it's God that's going to take our life. How can you trust a dude like that? And the Course specifically states, no, that God has nothing to do with coming along and taking your life away. And yet that's what's behind our mind all the time.
Yeah.
Without the fear of hell upon his heart. And what that basically means is yes, because we believe that, the belief of hell is on our hearts. Because we believe we did something so horrible that God could never possibly forgive us. And the God of the Course would say, hey guys, nothing happened. How could I hold this against you when it's not real? The dream that you've accepted as reality, and it doesn't exist. Would somebody tell Marty what page we're on? Type it in, please. Or I guess it's on, sorry, Marty, workbook 9.
I was hoping not to interrupt you, Mary.
All right, we're in
Thank
paragraph 5, workbook lesson 196. Sorry about that. So again, our choice for this has not brought us anything too good. And again, Jason had that experience. Well, if we literally understood what this choice is, we would never choose for this. You know, I kind of jokingly would often say, this is a pile of poop, this is a pile of whipped cream, and we like whipped cream a lot. But we keep choosing the pile of poop because there's just a little bit of whipped cream along the edges. And we still think that this is going to bring us something of value.
I want to be special.
And to the degree we want to be special and individual, we're going to choose this. Because I can't be special.
Win the race.
Yeah, we win
There's
the
another,
race.
there's another, Marianne, there's another
Yes.
part of this, at least for me, you know, if I'm seeing an image like that kind of told me what my ego was driving towards, right? We talked about that.
Right.
But my decisions to not go out and visit my wife's family or something like that is related to that.
Absolutely.
The decision that I'm making to just keep myself sequestered into my own house and stuff like that is related to that because it's what feeds that. So it does affect your decisions even as an ego.
Absolutely. Again, you're either feeding this or you're feeding this. There is no other choice. Doesn't exist. So if I, don't choose to, connect with my brother, it's because I would rather be special and different. It's across the board. And I win. I don't go visit them, I win. But did I really?
But could you say it's between going or not going? The choice is who you take with you or who you don't take with you.
Absolutely. Yes.
So that's what, because it. I was talking to my cousin today, and she's telling me about her choice with her daughter, and then her husband, and how they make all these choices and they hate each other. And I said, "There's another choice."
Yes, yes.
That, and there's only that other choice that's going to get you out of that.
Yes. And kind of along the lines of what Andrea was saying, okay, so tomorrow, Jason, you might say, okay, I'm going to go do that. But you really don't want to do that still, okay? You're still Jasoning.
Right.
Yeah, interesting, yeah.
So you can go do that, but still be coming from here.
Right.
Last thing you really want to do is say, okay, Holy Spirit, I'm getting that if I, you leave my brother behind, I'm not really demonstrating love. I want you to show me how I can come to a time or a place or experience where I can reflect that love. You show me how to do that. And then, in 6 months, one day you might say, honey, let's go visit your family. And it will be because it's the right thing for you to do. It's not because you're doing this because the Course says that's what I should do. Very, very, very different experiences.
And then on a practical experience of that, okay? That, and Ken's saying, it's not, what I do, but what I think about what I do. Mm-hmm. And until I am clear, until I've healed or call that back and really see that that's a part of me, and I've come to some kind of understanding or what is connection to it, where I can act without a whole lot of, shit, without a
Anxiety.
whole lot of
Yeah.
stinky stuff happening. So until I clear it out with me and come to peace with that symbol that they're, or that symbolism or what they're showing me, won't be no,
Yeah.
other than that, I'm just acting I'll just be a
Yeah.
phony and be
Well,
putting up and pretending.
you'll be going, but they'll be digging up the shit still. You'll think you've given them a gift, and they'll just be, oh, look at, oh, now he comes. I mean, it won't get better. It'll be just what they think it is, or what the ego it tells you it is.
And I think that's a real important difference from many spiritualities out there. Many spiritualities said, if you're a good person, you'll do A, B, C, and D. And if you're a bad person, you'll do whatever. Well, from the perspective of the Course, I can do the quote unquote good things, but if I'm still aligned with my thought system of the ego, I am not doing what my body's doing. I'm not aligned with love. I'm not connected with what the result of that love would be. And you could eventually go or not go, but be totally aligned with peace, and whatever you do will be the right thing to do. And that's another tricky thing too, because we think if I do this, then I'm a good person. If I do this, I'm not. But it's, who are you walking with?
Marianne,
Yes.
yeah, I'd like to share an experience I had this week. And let me just preface it by saying, when I start out, I'm dealing with things like people, quote, cutting me off in traffic, or, dropping the blueberries on the floor or something like that. So that's like putting my nickel in the Holy Spirit's piggy bank there, if I can take that to him. But as I do that, it's like what you were saying earlier, we collapse time. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine this week. Actually, I was doing more listening to a problem that she had in her family. And, I love these people dearly. And this was serious. And, a member of her family was under attack in the 2 + 2 = 4 world. And it was very upsetting and could ruin this person's life. And it was serious stuff, given the world that we live in. And it was very upsetting to her, and she needed to release some of that. And I was upset by it too. I could see the seriousness of it, and I was judging, the people who were doing the attacking.
Sure.
And all of a sudden, I wasn't. All of a sudden, I thought, they're living in fear. They are in fear, and the only way I know to combat fear is to bring it to love. I take what I see and I take it to the Holy Spirit, and I allow his love to just rain on everything. I don't know how to say that, but
You did pretty
that's what
good.
happened.
You did pretty good. And that, be very aware, like Helene was saying, she got caught up in the stuff too. Well, when you get caught up in the stuff, number one, you're judging. Number two, you're feeling bad for the person. The whole shebang starts to wrap around there. And that moment where your awareness came to, wait a minute, I don't want to go there. I want to be the most powerful representation of love that is possible. Show me how to do that. And not feel guilty because you ran in the gambit of the ego, but be very consciously aware of, in the midst of that, I was able to see clearly. And that was like the miracle. I mean, that is the miracle.
The ego, what it's doing, it's not useful. It is not a solution.
No.
It's in fear.
Well, it's a solution if you want to maintain your innocent victimness. That's the only way it's useful. When we give up the need for that, then it's a whole nother package we're working on.
Marianne,
Yes.
oh,
Go ahead.
just along those lines, I've been thinking a lot about that too, Helene, those situations. And I was reading in the back of the book, forgiveness to destroy versus forgiveness for salvation.
Oh, yeah.
And it's so tricky. It is so tricky. A person can think they're being forgiving and loving, and well, they just don't understand because they're there and I'm here. And that's forgiveness to destroy. You're one up, one down. I mean, it is so tricky to do that.
And it's so normal in our world because that's how we've been trained. And it just wipes everything out of everything you thought you knew and how you were supposed to fix it, and starts from a totally different place.
So every decision, yeah, it's what's in your heart, just like you said, rather than justifying it mentally. Yeah, anyway, so that just came to mind when I heard your story.
I think when you're feeling bad for everybody that's talking to you, you know you're getting close to the Holy Spirit. If you just, okay, you can't say that, don't like this, don't you like everybody, everything that's being told to you is making you upset. You're getting warm. You're getting close to where you're going to opt out for the Holy Spirit or opt in or whatever.
Yep. And Dawn, I mean, that section you were reading is a very advanced concept to even grab a hold of, let alone be able to come to a point where you can live it. But at least you have the awareness, oh, that's not it either. That's not it either. That's not it either.
Yeah, that's not it either.
I think that's where, as I mentioned earlier, the Course is very different than a lot of other things out there. Because not many things say, it's a, just be nice. This is not what this is talking about at all. Totally different experience. And, I can't remember if I read it or heard it this week, but I thought it was a really beautiful comment. And Ken mentioned the idea that when he teaches the Course, I guess taught because he's gone, taught the Course, he would teach the Course from the highest level that he could. But when he worked one-on-one with an individual, he came to where they were in their journey and had total and complete compassion for where they were. And I think all of us as Course students can kind of hit our brother over the head with the book, insisting the words in the book are most loving thing, which ultimately they are, but we don't take people where they are often. And, I'm sure I've done it, and probably all of us have done it to some degree. And yet, again, if we keep coming back to the Holy Spirit, I don't know, guide me, show me, let me speak your words, or that one prayer that talks about the idea of, what is it? No, it's not coming to me, whatever. Anyway, that I don't know, but I want you to read through me so that I can express your love. And again, sometimes the only way we find out that's not what I'm doing is when we're doing it the other way. So don't use that information to browbeat yourself. Use that information to go, oh, all right, let's flip that around. Let me now align with love, rather than take that extra time of hating yourself because you didn't do it right yet. So keep bringing it back to the best of your ability. Is there somebody?
I would be aware of trying. Because if I'm trying to be forgiving, that's not it. And I mean, one of the things I loved about what Helene said was all of a sudden.
Yes.
Because that's my experience as well. All of a sudden, boom, I'm on the right side. I'm not trying to be on the right side in that moment.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. I know I have a family situation that has been going on since August, and before I even started the course, and I'm trying to think of what do I do? And as I'm reading this and learning the course, like, no, if I'm trying to figure out what to do, I'm not ready to do anything.
And that's perfect.
It
And
has
you
to come.
just be aware of yourself trying to do something.
Right.
Yeah, and no judgment, just simply
Right.
approving this is what I'm doing. And I do want to mention for some of the newer people, you know, both Rose and Colleen have been working this process for a very long time. And when they said, you know, the idea just came to me, initially that might not happen as frequently. It's almost like we have to pay our dues and keep asking no matter what happens, and even if nothing seems to shift. And then as we move forward a bit, those answers will just come from almost nowhere, which are a result of our continuing to ask, even when we didn't get the response that we thought we should get, or help, or whatever word you want to use. But as we keep doing it, the light begins to shine in more clearly on a more consistent basis.
When I'm early on in the process, the thing that I tell myself is, it's like, I want to be in that place where it just sort of falls into place, and I'm not there yet.
Yes.
A useful saying for me is, I will to will God's will. So it's like, that's the best I can do, is I want the right thing, or I want to do the right thing. So, and I think it's so much all about intention and desiring and wanting to have that intention. And there's a reason they call this all practice, right? I mean, it takes time, right? We do it over time, but just having my, so to speak, my heart and my head in the right direction. And again, this goes back to what I was talking about last week, that I felt like I just didn't, the more I thought about it, I thought I didn't say it very well last week, but that's exactly it, is that we can open to the answer, but the timing and the arrival of the answer, or the timing and the arriving of the resolution, our ability to do that process faster is in relationship with the Holy Spirit. Like, that's not something we can control. The inputs, we can't control the outputs, right? The outputs arrive when we're ready. We can only show up, be willing, stay open, have a good intention, and let the answer arrive when it does.
Correct.
I keep thinking of Rose's words. Wait a minute, stop. You don't understand. Ask for help.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
And just wait.
it's all you can do sometimes. I mean, I have just been in the pit of despair the last couple of weeks, and just waiting for that to pass. Because I didn't want, you know, I'm very aware that I didn't want an answer. You know, so I'm just sitting here. I'm sitting here in this pool of this shitty pool. And the other day, more snow. I get out the snow blower and I'm doing the driveway. And then, as Helene said, all of a sudden, I look at the snow blower and I see it from a totally different perspective, and we're working together, and I'm so grateful for the snowblower.
Yes. And the way the reflection of that light shows up in your life will be very individual to you. And if you told that story to someone on the street, they would think you were okay. But those of us who have had that reflection or experience in life know what you're talking about. It's just, something's different, and you know, you can't even put it into words yourself. And you know, somebody they were talking about the idea of, you know, waiting for an answer. This course is about, you recognize you're stuck here because you want to be stuck here. You've asked for help, and the rest of it is none of your business when it unfolds. And if you make it your business, you're right back here again. So your job is, oh, wait a minute, look, I must have been identified with the ego because I'm not at peace. Help. Stop. The rest of it is going to take care of itself, and it's really none of your business. And the more you can do that, the better. But don't come back and try to figure out, where's the answer? I'm looking for the answer, because it's not coming necessarily right now.
I mean, it's just astonishing. It just bowls you over when the Holy Spirit hops to kindness. It's incredible. The things that I thought of after I was, not happy, and there's a quick thinking for kindness. All of a sudden, it just pops in me just in time. Okay, here I am. And I remember that little boy at my house used to wear a little cape, and he said, "This looks like a job for Superman." And I was so frustrated. I didn't want him to jump off the couch or get hurt or anything. And then I thought of myself saying, this looks like a job for the Holy Spirit, because I can't do it, for goodness sakes.
Yes, beautiful. And
Marianne?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, hi, how are you? Hi, everyone.
Hi.
I just wanted to say that I had an experience. I've been struggling with my wife. My wife's been very angry at me for a couple of months, and that's my fault. I did it. It was my attack. I did it. And so she has been on the attack, like literally physically everything on the attack. And I finally stopped having any argument, and I don't know what compelled me to stop arguing, because that's kind of my nature in my job, but I did. And I held up my hands and I said, I have no defense to this. You're right. And you know what it did? It quelled the entire situation. And you know where I learned it? From Ken Wapnick, because there is no, and from A Course in Miracles, from this book, because there is no defense. And I immediately went from that defense lawyer mode in the ego, switched over to the right side, was like, you're right. I mean, it happens. Does it happen to me all the time, or as much as all of you that have been practicing so long? No, it does not. But when it does, I'm aware. And as soon as I'm aware that I am in the ego, which is most of the time, but as soon as I'm aware, and I immediately, it just was an immediate switch over to the other side of the chart.
Beautiful.
It's shocking.
Shocking. Why is that shocking?
It's shocking what love can do.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
You were in a tug of war with your wife, and you stopped playing.
I did.
Duality? Stop duality.
Right. And I just started to observe the things that she was saying, and I didn't take on the guilt, and I didn't take on the judgment. And that's a huge step for me. Huge.
Beautiful, 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 beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And I just want to comment, when Rose was speaking, I'm sure most of you could hear her voice crackling, and, probably tears were forming in her eyes. And it is not at all unusual when we're connecting with a miracle like this, that it's almost like an expansiveness occurs within us that is almost too much for our body to contain. So we will have sometimes emotional responses that will come forth. And this is not tears of sadness. This is a different kind of tears. So if that happens, don't be too stunned, because it's really just the reflection of that love pouring through you in a contained body that can't contain it as much as it used to.
Yeah, that's
so
all.
it's a beautiful thing.
Thank you.
And these, a number of people have shared beautiful miracles or reflections of choices from miracles. And as I said, they're all very individual. But when you have one, it is a jewel beyond anything that this world can provide. And those moments will never be erased from your mind. They will be like they're this close to you, because they are that reflection of love that the result of choosing to work on this course will begin to bring to you.
And the miracle isn't how I saw the snowblower. The miracle is the choice for the Holy Spirit.
Exactly.
And how that gets played out, because and I've noticed in me, ego will take that and, oh, look how special I am. You got to be very careful with all of that.
Yep, it'll get you one way or the other because that's its job.
It's just another trap. Yeah.
All right, I think we will end with that beautiful note, and I will again mute everybody and all that good stuff, and we'll say our prayer, and then I'll unmute if anybody wants to stay and chat. Let's see. Okay. All right, take a nice big deep breath and let it all go. Forgive us our illusions, Father, and help to accept our true relationship with you, in which there are no illusions and where none can ever enter. Our holiness is yours. What can there be in us that needs forgiveness when yours is perfect? The sleep of forgetfulness is only the unwillingness to remember your forgiveness and your love. Let us not wander into temptation, for the temptation of the Son of God is not your will. And let us receive only what you have given and accept but this into the mind which you have created and which you love. Amen.
Thank you, everybody.